Your Creative Push, episode 107.
For a work of art or for a creative process to really be meaningful, there has to be an element of searching in it. You actually can't have all the answers.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and today's episode is part 2 of my conversation with Noah Harley. If you missed the first part of our conversation, you can head to yourcreativepush.com/106, or if you are subscribed, just head back to that episode in your podcast player before listening to this one. At the end of yesterday's episode, we were talking about the therapeutic nature of writing and how writing and creativity in general is accomplished by just putting your ass in the chair. It's really that simple. So that being said, we will get right back into the conversation. I hope that you enjoy the conclusion of my conversation with Noah Harley.
You can't burn down Rome in a day. You have to take it slow and burn it down neighborhood by neighborhood. If you want to write a book, then start with 3 pages. How else are you going to start but with 1 page, and start with something that you feel good about and you feel comfortable about, or you feel inspired about, that you feel excited to write about, and then you take it from there. That gives you some other idea, and so you can do it piecemeal. I think that a lot of times, and I wrestle with this too with recording this album last October. I felt like, oh gosh, it has to be this great record and I have to make all these songs immediately. But no, it's really just day by day, and then you have the satisfaction after a while of looking back on the thing and you think, oh wow, I did do this for an hour a day, but after 2 months, then you have something, and so it's really a daily practice. I think that I was also, when you were talking about routine, I think that creativity is also, it's just not directly related to the average everyday stuff. It also has to do with dreams and kind of things that you don't know about or things that you wonder about and getting out of, I don't know, like it's also a way of processing. Sometimes I write a song and then I leave it and I don't perform it. And then I come back to it 6 months later and think, oh, so that was what the weather report was like then. Sometimes I think that the subconscious mind or the mind that's not always activated by jobs and logistics and the daily grind, sort of, that it operates on a different time length, and it operates in metaphor, and it operates in in dreams. And so sometimes you don't even know what you're making. You find out actually what was going on later. But it's not totally direct. It's not a literal, like, well, today I feel bad, or today I feel great. You write about, if you feel bad, then you write about the rain. If you feel good, you write about the sun. It's very simple stuff, but it's not a one-to-one transfer, sort of.
Yeah. And even on a more large scale, like going along exactly with what you're saying, and I don't want to get too, woo-woo. Something that I found is, I'll write something and it doesn't feel right, quite yet. Some of the music videos that I've made, don't feel right yet.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, like I'll wait, even up to a year to look at it again. And all of a sudden it makes sense. Yeah. And it's almost like it makes so much sense for the moment that I'm in at that point when I revisit it. And it's almost like I'm a fucking fortune teller from the past, like previous me was just like seeing the future almost. And I don't know, I do feel like there's some type of, like, I have a weird concept on time. Actually, my next music video has something to do with that too, but I just feel like time, we don't quite understand it as humans.
No, I think you're totally right. Sometimes the position of an atom is determined by where it's going to be in the future,
Yes. Yes. Totally agree. I totally agree with you. Yeah, it's very strange though. But the thing is, when you get that kind of feeling, it's really kind of cool, and it just makes you feel like you're part of something bigger, which I think that art, creativity, all of this stuff falls under just that umbrella of just amazingness that it's this language that we don't quite understand. And the only way to try to kind of understand it is to partake in it, and to try to communicate with other people like we're doing right now about it. And I think that's the only way to try to move forward with it. But I think art is the only way to move forward in that kind of, I don't want to say spiritual sense, but this just unknowing sense.
Yeah. And a kind of like non-literal sense. And I think also that just to trust that, you write something and say, oh, like this doesn't make sense, or, where is this coming from? But you can just leave it, and like you're saying, maybe in 3 months, that's going to be the answer to your decision. But it's going to come on its own. It's going to come in its own way. It's going to come on its own timeline.
I love it.
I also wanted to say, I think that, well, a couple of things. One is that I think if you're writing or any kind of creative thing, I think it's really useful. Again, with dreams, like when you dream, it's little pieces from your everyday life, from your normal life. You recognize your mother, but she doesn't look like your mother. And then maybe that day you went to the grocery store, and so you're in a grocery store in your dream. But I think it's with creativity, it's really important you can use pieces of your actual life. It's easier to have a start that's a little bit concrete and that you feel familiar with. And using those pieces rather than sitting down and saying, okay, now I have to invent something that has never been written, in a language that doesn't exist. That's not, you don't have to do that. You have to use nouns and adjectives and, and pronouns and whatever. So you can, and the same with what you write about, that it's easier to write about what or start with something that you've actually experienced, and then you can see where it goes. But I think to get a foothold into that world that we're talking about, you can begin with simple things that you've experienced or that you actually think, and that makes it a little bit less intimidating. I think it can feel a little bit scary to say, oh, well, this has to be a masterpiece and it has to be original. Well, this is not, it's not like this is the Picasso quote, good artists copy, great artists steal, that like you use the material of the world to reflect on it. And I also wanted to say that I think it's important to have fun, it's okay. And this gets back to the humor in songs, it's okay. Creativity is also about discovery, and the joy of discovery and surprise, even surprise with yourself, like, oh, I can do it, or, oh, weird, that's the thing that I thought wasn't going to be the thing is the thing, and it's not like someone is forcing you to do this, and so if it doesn't feel good, then get up and go for a walk, or drink a beer, or watch Game of Thrones, or, I don't know, go swim in a lake, but it can be fun, and it should be something that feeds you, and that feels good. Sometimes you write because you're sad, and that's also totally legitimate. But I would encourage people to really use this source of joy in the thing that activates them, or the thing that makes them feel active in their lives.
For sure, and that, I think, goes along with what you should be using whatever the creative pursuit that you're doing is, whether it's music or writing or photography or whatever. Like, you should be doing it just to get something of yourself out there, and that is the therapy of it.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times people don't want to do a specific type of writing, like if they don't want to write funny songs,
right,
or they don't want to write sad songs because it's defined, like that the genre is defined that way.
Right.
But you should just be doing it just to get like the most authentic you out there in whatever fashion it may be. And I think a lot of times people worry too much about the end result of it, like the end product of it, and how it's going to be perceived by other people. You know what I mean? It's just get it out there, like spew it out, like puke it out, and then like just make sure that like you can do it in a safe place and nobody's going to see your writing, like keep it locked up, as we've talked about before on this podcast, and then decide later if you want other people to see it.
That's a different decision, it's a different decision whether you want other people to see it or not. And you can make that decision later, and maybe you decide not to. And then later you say, oh, actually, I like this. I'm going to put it out.
it's one of the hardest distinctions to make, though, because, well, it is like at first, but whenever you can kind of get used to like the fact, like when you can trust yourself and you realize that it is that you put yourself in a safe place where, you know, nobody's going to hack into your computer and steal your Microsoft Word documents or whatever. If you can like understand that, you know, nothing really bad is going to happen if you just type this stuff out there.
You know, I go to these in New York. I've gone to some I've had the distinct misfortune of going to some like high level art galleries, and it just, you see these pieces and it's like a wrench on the ground, but then there's a 4-page essay explaining the meaning of the wrench on the ground. The problem with that sort of thing for me is that actually it's just totally intellectual. There's very little emotion and there's very little searching in it. And I think what you're talking about, that the end product isn't the point. It's really the process. Is that I think for a work of art or for a creative process to really be meaningful, there has to be an element of searching in it. And you actually can't have all the answers. And that's one of the things about creativity that's scary, but which is also really inspiring and can be a really strong thing, is that when you're looking, you don't know where it is, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that can be scary, because it's easier to just go on your iPhone and say, okay, I know exactly where I am because here's where my little dot is, you know? And so we have a lot of things in our lives that make, or I have a lot of things in my life that make, you know, I feel reassured because I know, okay, my name is Noah Harley. I live here. I have this identity. I can buy tomatoes for $3.29 a pound. You know, all of these things that we rely on. And with creativity, it's really, you just don't know, you know, but if you do it regularly, then you can get comfortable with unknowing, you know, and then you don't know where it leads. But I think it's important to kind of keep that living confused root in the work, because that's what makes it really interesting for an audience, you know, for your audience.
Yeah, because you should be searching for something, because if your art is saying, here's the answer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, it's not really a nice place to come from.
Yeah.
It's way more to be like, here's the question, let's explore it together, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's what the human condition is. It's because nobody knows what the fuck is going on. Just like you were saying, you know, with the atoms. Like, nobody knows. None of us know
and it's like,
what the hell is going on here.
This guy, Terence McKenna, that I listen to.
I love Terence McKenna!
Yeah,
I love
so
that you
good.
just brought him up.
He has this great line where he says, nobody is in control. The CIA is not in control. The White House is not in control. The United Nations is not in control. We're definitely not in control. We don't have answers. You know, it's not like there's some final authority that you can submit the question to. You know, I mean, even with religion, which offers these absolute answers, actually, it's more of a process of living the questions rather than just holding on to this little flag that says God and kind of sitting back and popping open a beer and saying, well, I guess that's a good life. You know, it's
right. No, for sure, man. I love Terence McKenna.
Yeah, he's so good.
That just goes the whole whatever. We can go down that wormhole if you want.
We can have another one about that.
Maybe next episode. Sure. But yeah, you're right. And like every society, even the most the greatest artistic societies that have ever lived, you know, they all fall, they all crumble, and we're crazy to think that we have all the answers too. Like, and I think it's funny as well, and I don't want to get too whatever, but you know, like we kind of scoff at the idea of, you know, worshiping the sun,
right? You
know, or like worshiping, you know, like we're like, oh, they believed in, you know, Apollo and like Zeus and like all that shit. Like so what if, I'm not dissing any religion. I think like we all try to figure it out our own way, but like, isn't it okay to like not worship the sun, but isn't it okay to be like, holy shit, like this is like the only, like we revolve around this thing, and like this is the only reason that we are around right now, but we like look at that and we're like, oh, they worship the sun. It's very interesting to me to like think back to like previous times, and we like look at them as if they're so unadvanced, but you know that we only know I mean, we know a lot more than they knew, and we have advanced in a lot of ways, but at the same time, we are the same, just flesh and bones that they were, just trying to figure out where the hell we are in this existence. And we just happen to have a little bit more knowledge, but the more knowledge that we have, it almost makes it even more of a mind fuck. It makes it even more confusing.
Yeah. And also the people of the past, they also knew things that we don't know anymore. You know,
I know, which is so scary.
Yeah, like we don't know what it's like for Apollo to come down. You know, or we don't know what it's like to wake up and not know where your food is going to come from. You know, and so there are things that the ancient cultures or that older cultures knew that we don't. So it's really not. I think we can get in. Yeah, there's just this idea of progress, which is this ball and chain, you know, that we're always getting better and that we're always moving forward towards some brighter future where, you know, Jesus comes back or the sun flies into this, you know, I mean, it's so funny that the term that we have for the beginning of the universe is the Big Bang. You know, like that's the craziest term of all time, and it's just this story that we have. You can look at it.
It's the same thing.
You can look at it for sure as in terms of the scientific language and the terminology, but you can also look at it as the story that first there was nothing, and then this thing happened, you know, which is called the Big Bang, and you know, now we're here. So that's
And the thing is, like, we base that all off of, which I think math is like the god. I think mathematics, and, you know, it tells all, and it just reveals all the kind of secrets of like what we're doing and like how we exist. But it's just a structure. Like, it's just like what we're a part of, but it doesn't mean we understand where that math came from. And like, the math says that we came from a Big Bang, but like, what does that even mean? Yeah. Like,
this is, and there's for me, one other thing that I think about a lot with the songs that I write is what happens to the things that don't happen. You know, where does it go when you love someone and then it's over? You know, what happens because at the moment it feels like anything could happen, you know, 3 or 4 things could happen, but then one thing happens. And but what happens to these? I mean, there's this idea of that there's a universe where where all these possibilities play out, or like a multiverse, right? So
a multiverse where just literally everything that can ever happen happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So where I walk down the right side of the street instead of the left side of the street, or where the pizza guy gives me $10, or where he yells at me, or but yeah, that's so mysterious. We just don't know where all those possibilities go. And I think those possibilities, they remain in our mind as questions. You know, you think, oh, well, if I hadn't gone to this school, or if I hadn't met this person, then what would have become of me? That's why. Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have 2 sisters.
That's one of the things that's funny about siblings, is that it's kind of like seeing your life if you had a different fate. Because with your siblings, you see, okay, she got a little bit more of mom in her, or he got a little bit more of my grandmother in this reaction, or this smile, or this kind of decision making. So there's different personalities, but then you can kind of understand the life that they're leading if you had been in a different situation, you know, and that also kind of unsettles who you are, because actually you're more than just what happens to you. You're all the possibilities of what didn't happen, or what you wanted to have happen, or what you didn't want to have happen. And we carry all of this stuff. So we're not just living our own life, you know. There's a lot more to it.
Also, the math of it is insane. Alex Hofelt was on episode 76 and 77, and he's a science teacher, and he told me this like crazy fact, and I'll try to recount it now, but it was like the probability of you being created, of you, Noah Harley, just sitting there right now as a human being, like your parents getting together and their parents getting together and whatever, like, and existing on this earth, is like the population of, I forget what city, but it's like a population of like 2 million people, all of them rolling a trillion-sided dice and it all landing on the same like random number. Like it's so impossibly impossible that I think that's really inspiring and like should really make you just utilize this, the things that come into your brain, the inspiration that comes into your brain, the drive that gets inside of you that makes you hate your job, that makes you want to do something different, that you maybe stuff away with, other, bad habits so that you can kind of like just keep going through this path that like is easiest to go through. No, like just at least get your shit out there and at least like be able to put what you think about the world out there in whatever way you can, I think it's so important.
And I think that also that kind of the almost the impossibility of you existing, also a tree and also a toad and also a kookaburra, but we're all these really unique constellations, and this connects with originality because actually there's no way that it won't be original, whatever it is that you make, because you're the only one who would do something like this, there's no other creature that would make it in just the way that you would. That's also a very practical small thing that you just don't worry about influence, don't worry about whether it sounds like something else or because actually it's not, it's not the other thing. One other exercise for songwriters that sometimes I use in my own work is to take a song that really inspires me, that I really love, and just play it and then rewrite words to it, but keep the same melody and then change the melody. And so,
nice.
It's this kind of, secret theft or something like that. But then you get a song which came from a really deep source for you, something that was really inspiring, but you have these tools to begin to work with it and just not worrying about whether it's unique, or it's original because it is per se, it can't be anything else.
And who cares too?
Who cares?
Yeah, because like there can be so much joy in just like finding a really cool piece of art or a simple piece of art and just like putting it there and then like sitting with a blank piece of paper next to it and just trying to like copy it, like not copy it, but like just for yourself. Like obviously you're not going to like copy it and like publish it on Instagram and be like, look what I just made. But like, like there can be so much joy in just doing that. And just, if you don't have the artistic skills to just like copy it down and be like, oh, like, hey, look what my hand connected to a pen was able to make based off of the inspiration of somebody else. And that's also a really cool way to learn how to draw too. Like you can just kind of learn why, or, like how things are done. It's just the act of like keeping your hand busy. And I don't know, there's so much joy, I think, in just being able to express yourself, even if you need that kind of, like a crutch, not a crutch, but like a helping hand from somebody else. Yeah.
And it's so important.
Training wheels.
Training wheels. There you go. Swimmy muscles.
Yeah. Swimmy muscles.
Yeah. It's also with creativity. It's just, there's so many things I think that, and I wrestle with this all the time too. There's so many things that you just get so down about yourself. Like, oh, I'm not selling that many records, or like this song didn't come out the way I wanted to, or whatever. But you just have to be so gentle with yourself about creativity, because it also, you mentioned also the therapeutic quality of art, and that's totally legitimate. There's no rule book which determines whether a drawing is legitimate for the reason that it was made, and you just have to be really easy on yourself. It's also okay to make something that nobody else sees and you just make it and like lock it up or burn it or give it to a friend or whatever, but you really have to go easy on yourself. And it's okay if you start small, and it's okay if it doesn't happen immediately, and it can also be for different reasons.
Absolutely. And another thing we were talking about before, I'm definitely going to have to publish what we talked about before the episode.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Before the episode, we were talking about how, I received a letter from somebody who said that the podcast, affected their life in a way that it like changed their life. Like they were suicidal beforehand. And you said that a couple shared your song at their wedding, right? you never know like who it can affect. And just because these two particular examples reached out to us respectively, like that doesn't mean that like, 10 other people weren't affected by, the things that we have tried to do or whatever. Right. And I think like a really cool trick to do is like, imagine that 100 years from now is when somebody will like, that's going to change the world will be, inspired in just one little nugget of a way that pushes them to do what they're going to do in the world, like, so you'll be long dead. Like, so it's like a legacy type of thing. So like where you'll never know how, what you've done has affected somebody. I think that can be really a powerful kind of exercise to do too.
Yeah, maybe we're writing messages to the future and we don't know it, and we'll never live to see it. But it might be important evidence when they look back for what happened.
Yeah. So if you're listening in the year 3000 right now, what's up, man? Things are going great.
Hey,
how's it going?
They still have bananas.
Bananas?
I wonder in the year 3000 if there'll still be bananas or not.
I feel like we'll find a way to destroy bananas.
I know.
Probably. Animals are first, and then vegetables are
vegetables are... Yeah,
actually, vegetables might go first, and then fruit.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. Anyway, so we didn't get to any of the questions that I was actually going to ask.
Oh, that's because it's been a good conversation.
Yeah, man, I've really appreciated this. But it's obligatory that you have to give the final push, which is where I ask you to reach through the microphone and grab the shoulder of somebody that you've already really inspired today that's thinking, I need to start writing songs, or I need to get back to my art, or whatever it happens to be, and give them your best words of advice and really just push them into pursuing their creative passions.
Yeah, you have it. And actually, what you want to do. That's what I would say.
Yeah, they do. I would agree completely.
Yeah, I would say start small and start steady, because the muse is fickle and she has a lot of lovers. And if you don't show up, then she won't know whether to show up, or he won't know whether to show up. So I think that steadiness is important, but I think that like you can rely on yourself and you can trust yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that just comes down from ass and chair.
Yeah. Well, there's that practical manifestation, it's got to come into the world also. It can't remain just an idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Noah, man, thank you so much. This was an absolute pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
I really appreciate it.
I think that you're doing great work, young man, and thanks for listening, everybody. And onward and upward.
Onward and upward.
Yeah.
And you can find Noah on Horside Men's Bandcamp page, horseyedmen.bandcamp.com. That's HORSEYEDMEN.bandcamp.com, or on Facebook, which is Horse-Eyed Men. If it's easier, just head to yourcreativepush.com/Noah, and you can find all the links we've talked about today on that show notes page. So that's what you can do. Noah, thanks again, man.
Oh, thank you very much.
Wow. Huge thank you to Noah for coming on the show. I don't know if there's much I can say to sum that up, because there's so much that we covered in this episode, these two episodes actually. But I think the most important thing to really take from this is, that idea of just get your ass in the chair and do the work. It can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming to think about, especially if you have a larger body of work or a bigger project that you need to take on, or you're really behind in your stuff. But really, it's as simple as just forgetting about that, not letting it overwhelm you, and just sitting down and doing the work. Not being scared of the end result of it, not being scared of being unoriginal, because as Noah said, it's impossible to not be original. You're the only person that can think about things the way that you think about them, and you're the only person that can put your creative spin on whatever it is that you're doing. There's so many other things that can get in the way. There's so many things that can hold you back and stop you from doing it, but it's just so important to just sit down and do the work, and then evaluate all that other stuff later. And hopefully some of Noah's cool tricks, not only about art and creativity, but about just kind of existing in this world, were helpful to you, and maybe you can employ them in your daily routine from now on. And if this wasn't quite enough for you, if you'd like some more content, Noah and I had quite a lengthy conversation before the interview actually started. I was like, all right, we just got to hit record and start going. And we mentioned that in the podcast. But if you want to get access to that, head over to patreon.com/yourcreativepush. That is where I am uploading all of the extra content, as well as some other goodies that you can get if you haven't checked it out yet. So a nice little chunk of bonus content for you there if you want to check it out, and much more to come as I continue to have these awesome conversations with these wonderful people about creativity that don't quite fit in a 30-minute episode. On tomorrow's show, we have Jacob Dine.
The amount of time you put into something is the amount of time you're going to get out of it. I work with students that have never painted before, and within one semester, some of their work is gallery work. So, and they put in lots of time and things like that. So I just think, the biggest thing is if you put in enough time, you're gonna get something out of it.
Jacob is a really special artist and a really cool guy. He works across multiple disciplines, and it was really interesting to hear his take on that. But that is for you tomorrow if you need the push again. Hopefully today you're inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. We are going to leave you with Noah Harley and the Horside Men's Hired Hand in its entirety as you go and begin to get your work done. Have a great day, everybody. I love you so much. Thank you for listening, and we will see you tomorrow if you need the push again.
I do not have a horse to ride. If I did, I'd surely go where you cannot see below, to where the waters hiss and boil, to where the earth lies free and cold. As I to these lands did ride, as I to these lands did go, above me I could feel the sky, within me I could feel the wind, within me I could feel the wind. My man, don't lie to me. Did they shoot you up with gasoline? Tore you up beneath the sea? My man, don't lie to me. I can run for miles. I only have one wing to fly. I'm not afraid to look, to see the corpses of my days stretched out there in the open man, don't lie to me. Did they shoot you up with gasoline? Tore you up beneath the seas? My man, don't lie